working now. Okay.
We are? Okay. Oh, shit.
Y'all can hear us, right?
I'm going to have to raid Pride Detroit again. Calf. Welcome to the Pride of Detroit PODcast. PrideofDetroit.com, Pride of Detroit on Twitter, or X, whatever it's called. Pride of Detroit on Facebook, Pride of Detroit on Blue Sky. You know where to find us. You know where we're at. Live now on twitch.tv/Pride of Detroit and youtube.com/@Pride of Detroit as we attempt to break down a Lions loss, which sounds odd to talk about, and I know that there's plenty of doom to really go around considering the state of the injuries and what's just happened as the Lions ran into the Buffalo Bills. 48-42, the final score. Let me just put a couple things in context, though, before we begin. And this isn't me trying to do cope. I think this is me just doing a bit of a gut check to some Lions fans who I've seen declare it over and everything, and I know that's kind of where the mood goes a lot of ways, but let me just say, like, how spoiled we've kind of been coming up to this point, that this is the first Lions loss, not just in 3 months, but only the 5th home loss since, I believe, week 12 of 2022. It's pretty incredible. Either way, it is a loss that has heralded a lot of woe for the Detroit Lions, partly because of injuries, mostly because of injuries, and we just had some new ones on Monday. So we're going to talk about all of that and how the Lions lost this game and where they go from here with 3 games remaining on the schedule. I'm Chris Perfett, the adequate host, at Chris Perfett on Twitter, Perfett on Blue Sky. Wow, okay, my brain broke for a second. Jeremy Reisman, the fearless leader, at Detroit on Lion. Hello, Jeremy.
Listen, we're in uncharted territories. A Lions loss, so we're all probably going to be a little bit off our game. Like you said, it's been 3 months since we've had to do one of these react to a loss shows. So hopefully we'll get our act together here, just like hopefully the Lions will get their act together in the final 3 games of the regular season.
I'm just trying not to sound spoiled about it, man. I'm just really not. This has been an amazing season to watch, and unfortunately, it just seems to be coming apart at the seams a little bit with some of these injuries sustained.
Speaking of coming apart at the seams, Ryan. No, sorry.
No, the one man who doesn't come apart at the seams no matter what, Ryan Matthews. At Ryan_POD and Ryan POD on Blue Sky. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Jeremy. How are you guys?
Good.
Peachy.
I mean, I'm lying a little bit, but I'm just going to say good.
My smoke alarm keeps going off at 4 a.m. for whatever reason. So that's how I am.
Yeah, like Jeremy said, we got to kind of knock the rust off when it comes to talking about a loss. So
it was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last time the Lions lost, and much like that game, this is a game where Jared Goff had to throw more than 50 times, which not the ideal way to run the offense there, but given some of the injuries, we just got news today about the MCL injury to David Montgomery. It might be some reality the Lions kind of have to handle with, but This is a tough one, Jeremy, because I feel like no matter which way I start on breaking down either the offense or the defense and how they perform this game, it feels partially unfair. It feels partially unfair for me to lay this all at the feet of a defense that is using guys off the street and waiver wires and guys who have been sitting out until December in the NFL season waiting for a chance to play again, who gave up 48 points to one of the best teams in the NFL and probably the MVP in Josh Allen, I'll say it right now. And it's hard for me to also complain about an offense that put up 42 points and was in a place to win this at the end of the game, but I can't ignore how uneven they looked to start this game and how well the Buffalo Bills shut down their game plan to start, as they had the least rushing yards they've had all season, I believe.
Yeah, not it wasn't even particularly close. They'd had over 100 yards in every single game this season. They finished this one with 48. But I do want to start on the defense, because I think that's where everyone is. I mean, obviously that's where the biggest concern is moving forward, and
especially with the injuries. Yeah,
yeah, it's tough. I was like 30 minutes into that game, I'm like, well, sucks not to have 4 of your top 5 linebackers, huh? And I think that was my main takeaway from this game, is that the Bills saw that the Lions were shorthanded at linebacker, and they seemed kind of uniquely built to be able to attack those linebackers all game, whether it was, the read options from Josh Allen that had them guessing wrong seemingly every single time, whether it was Ty Johnson coming out of the backfield or lined up out wide where a linebacker could not cover him all freaking day, or the tight ends. I mean, they have a really good set of receiving running backs and receiving tight ends, and they just utilize them every single opportunity that they found them lined up one-on-one with the linebacker, and the likes of Ezekiel Turner, David Long, whoever they tried to throw out there just weren't up for the challenge. And I don't want to say, okay, this is just an injury situation, the Lions will be okay once Alex Anzalone is back or anything like that. But I think this was certainly an opportunity where you saw that the Bills noticed a weakness, attacked it, and the Lions couldn't do anything about it. And I think there is a little bit of coaching blame to go around there. There has to be some sort of adjustment there. You can't just continue to have those guys try to cover these running backs in this game. But at the same time, you've got limited resources. You've got limited resources, and you can say just go play zone. Well, I mean, you think these guys are going to be that much better in zone? You think, a team that has been practicing, 70, 60% man all season, suddenly switching to zone is just going to oh yeah, let's just do that and we'll be much better. It wasn't a good situation. In retrospect, I think I maybe should have seen that mismatch coming because the Bills were so inclined to beat linebackers. But at the same time, we were coming off a week in which the linebackers actually played pretty well. We praised Kelvin Shepard and the defensive coaching staff for what they did in putting together a patchwork defense against a Packers offense that also was a top 5 offense in terms of DVOA. So it blindsided me a little bit, maybe shouldn't have, but I would say that is certainly a concern going forward. I think, I don't want to play now the blueprint is out card necessarily. I think the Lions will make some adjustments and figure things out, but there is a very blatant weakness on this team now that I have to imagine the Bears, the 49ers, and the Vikings are going to try to attack going forward.
Who knew that Trevor Nowaski being out was going to be the Jenga block that really kind of finally deep six this linebacker core, Ryan? It's tough.
It's tough. I think myself included, all thought Aaron Glenn was the shoe-in for assistant coach of the year with all of the work that he was able to do with a really barren cupboard. And I mean, the loss of Aleem McNeil for the rest of the season, and for all intents and purposes, Carlton Davis being out for the rest of the year as well. You lose those 2 guys. It's hard to imagine how this football team's going to win a game unless they score 45 points going forward. That's just how I feel. And I think that's the reality of the situation. Yeah. You have your starting cornerbacks are Terrion Arnold and Kendall Vildor. I mean, the Lions also lost Khalil Dorsey in this game for the rest of the season.
Injury for Dorsey.
It's depth on depth on depth. And I think that, to Jeremy's point, the coaching staff certainly deserves its fair share of blame. The Lions had extra days to prepare. They last played on Thursday, had a long time to get ready for the Buffalo Bills, and it wasn't Khalil Shakur who beat you. It wasn't Keon Coleman who beat you. It was Ty Johnson who beat you. And that's, I mean, like Jeremy said, it was all schematic. It was all just recognizing that if you're going to play man, we're going to put the fast running back out there, and we're going to hope that Quan Alexander can track him down. We're going to trust that Ezekiel Turner can work his way through, work his way through the garbage to get to him on that play that was so well designed. Totally legal pick play. And, I think when you look at this box score, you say, Ty Johnson killed us.
Yeah. Someone had to step up, I guess, for him. But
yeah. But the other point, too, I think, beside the defense, which I think is just so, I mean, it's almost like there's zero expectation I have with this defense going forward, right? Like any time that they can force a punt feels like a mini victory, right? It doesn't feel like something that's expected anymore with how we started with this Lions defense, where, I mean, by DVOA standards, one of the best defenses in all of football. And now for the past 3 weeks, speaking of pulling apart at the seams, this defense has been holding on for dear life, and it all just came cascading down yesterday at Ford Field in a way that we hadn't seen in some time
since Baltimore.
I guess the good news is the Lions aren't going to play a Josh Allen type of quarterback again, but also at the same time they seemed perpetually confused on how to handle him. Like, it seemed like the pass rush on the edge was mostly about containing him and not actually like going after him. He had no sacks in this game. And yeah, Cook is, you've been good at stopping the run from pretty much everyone this year, and you give up 4 rushing touchdowns. Cook puts up a 100-yard day and another almost 70 yards from Josh Allen. And that James Cook 41-yarder was a real backbreaker when you talk about like just completely breaking down in every phase to let him just take it to the house.
Well, on first bite, Jeremy brought up the variance in James Cook. It was either James Cook was over 70 yards or James Cook was under 40 yards. And it felt like going into this matchup, Jeremy, the Lions had at least, stuck with the ability to stop the run, which is so much part of their identity. Early on in this game, it was very clear that the linebackers weren't making their run fits. The defensive line wasn't doing a ton to stop the run either. And it felt like it was going to be one of those games where they ended up on the opposite side of things. And 7.5 a carry for James Cook, 6.2 a carry for Josh Allen. The only good thing was when Ray Davis was in the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was rough, right? I mean, I think it's the injury-riddled positions that let the Lions down in this game. Mm-hmm. You thought maybe with Josh Paschal and Levi Onwuzurike and DJ Reader all back in this game, like maybe they'd hold up on the defensive front, and they probably should have, but on the edges, they were just getting cooked. On the edges, they were not holding their blocks. They were not holding the edge. That goes for some of the defensive backs as well when it was their responsibility to hold the edge. And you broke contain. You let James Cook get to the outside. You let Josh Allen get to the outside. You didn't read the zone read right, and you crashed down when leaving the whole side of the field for Josh Allen to keep the ball and run. And then they crashed you up the middle. Once you guys adjusted there, it was just like, okay, we'll just beat you right up the middle. And that to me is like, you can't let that happen. That is your identity defensively. You cannot beat us up the middle. And they just did everything. And so it was certainly a huge disappointment on the defensive line when you got those 3 pieces back and you're like, okay, the defense is finally starting to come back together again. They're going to at least resume some of what they were doing before, because in all honesty, before the extra injuries in this game, the defense didn't look that much different personnel-wise than it has since Aiden Hutchinson has been out. It's just no Alex Anzalone, and everything else is pretty much the same. Now, again, I want to highlight what Chris said kind of offhandedly. Like, you're not going to face Josh Allen again until the Super Bowl, okay? You're not going to face the best offense in football.
Let's be clear. We've been doing a lot of doom, but the Super Bowl's still on the table for this team. It's going to require some insane luck, but like...
I know Ryan is very...
I know Ryan's shaking his head.
Ryan is very down on the defense. I'm not of the belief this will be a bottom-dwelling defense going forward. It might be average, which is a huge step down, no question, but they still have playmakers. They do. Their secondary, to me, is still going to hold up relatively fine. They didn't get cooked in this game because they were cooking everyone else on the defense, but they have bodies at corner, right? They have guys that they trusted to be part of their depth. They have Emmanuel Mosley. And yes, that is a big question mark. I'm not saying he's going to step in and be great, but he's the guy that they kept around for a reason.
We haven't seen him, though.
Right.
Right. At all.
Of course.
I mean, yeah.
They like Amik on the outside. That's an option. They talked today about Branch potentially dropping down to nickel and it's not ideal, but Iffy's also coming back. So, Iffy and Kirby at safety, Branch at nickel, and Amik on the outside, that's doable. It's not like the at least in the secondary that the barrel is empty. And then when you get Alex Anzalone back for the playoffs, I think the linebacking core suddenly looks a lot better.
Yes.
And so I think they can keep their head above water. It's just going to be a slog in these next 3 months. It's next 3 weeks. And you hope that their new additions will adjust, will get better. They got the Bears coming up, all right? That should be a get-right game for this defense. And I know they struggled in the second half against the Bears the first time they played, but they also dominated them in the first half. And I think they can get back to that.
Bears are now also dealing with an interim OC also being the interim head coach, which has taken away a lot of his ability to plan for some of these game day stuff because he's dealing with everything else. And then, after that, you got the 49ers and who knows what they are. If I can move to the offense, are we good to move to the offense, though?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can zoom right by Aleem McNeil being out for the rest of the season.
We've hinted around it. I mean, what else am I
Davis, the best cornerback on the team, is just done for the rest of the season.
Well, we were talking about before this show about how are we going to tackle the injuries without just dedicating the entire show to it, and I'm just like, what is there to say other than Aleem McNeil's a huge loss. You can't do what you like to do up the middle now without him.
Yeah, I mean, your interior pass rush is where? Donde está la pass rush? Yo no sé. Carlton Davis was your guy that you could throw out there that I felt confident could go toe-to-toe with your number one wide receiver against your Justin Jefferson, against your, insert wide receiver one. Trusting Terry and Arnold to do that, trusting Amik Robertson. I know we talk about all the mental reps that he can get on the sideline, but now if he moves outside corner, there's just a lot of moving parts. And forgive me for not being it'll be cool. We'll get Alex Anzalone back. And it's yeah, that helps. But I don't know. I just kind of want to focus on the fact that the Lions have had some historically terrible injury luck.
No
historically
question.
Bad.
Yeah.
Historically bad so much that after last night, it shifted my expectations for the season.
It's completely understable.
Is that I feel like it's fair, right?
It's understandable. I'm just trying to square my circle in my own head that I feel like Aleem is backbreaking in bad ways, but also I've seen this team winning 3 games in 11 days with a lot of these same injuries. So it's hard for me to say they can't do anything now either.
Yeah.
They've been making it work to this point. It just happened to be that the Bills are just not a point they can reach with all of these substitutions.
Yeah, I guess that's my main thing. I don't want to keep on sitting and talk about the injuries, but I guess more so expectations for the season and how it shifted. And it's not so much the 3 games that are remaining. It's once the Lions get past those 3 games and it's a best of 1, whoever walks out of here after 60 minutes, the winner is going on to the next round.
It's really going to depend on the matchup.
It's going to depend on the matchup, but that's also where I take umbrage with, they're not going to play Josh Allen every week. They're going to get Baker Mayfield, or they're going to get Matthew Stafford, or they're going to get there's some players in the NFC that can carve up the defense as it stands today. Right? It's going to be a tough challenge, but do I still trust the offense? And I think that's where we shift the conversation. Yeah, I still trust the offense to score points. It's just, are they going to be able to get the ball back and not be playing from behind constantly because they had a 3-and-out to start the game?
They've done it for 2 years prior to this season. They know how to win games with their offense, and they're capable of doing it. And I would still say this defense is better than it was in 2022. Is it better than it was at the end of 2023? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but I can't take this shift from this was a top 10 defense, now it's a bottom 10 defense. I don't think it's that drastic. I really don't. If we're going to credit this defensive coaching staff for all the miracles they did last week, for all the miracles they've done all season, to believe that suddenly they just, the deck is empty, they're not going to be able to do anything, that defeatist attitude I can't get behind.
Yeah, I think it's put an upper limit on what they can accomplish and what they do, but like I'm not ready to throw it all out. As far as the offense goes, again, it's hard to start nitpicking on them when they put up 42 points. But I think I said this after the Tampa Bay game that I really cannot see their road to success when it's Jared Goff throwing almost 60 times in a game, and he did it here. And losing David Montgomery for the year is bad. It takes away one of your battering ram weapons. I still think Jahmyr Gibbs can kind of carry a lot of that load. But it's certainly you're missing a style of your rushing attack that's just not going to come back. The bigger problem, I think, for the Lions is that in this game, I don't think the offensive line performed very well at pass blocking. I mean, I joined a Bills podcast before this, and they were talking about how the Bills really like to do what the Lions were doing in past years. They would love to get a tackle for loss, set you up and down in distance, and just try to make sure that you're not going to convert there. And that's exactly what happened to the Lions in this game. Early on in this game, the Lions could not get the ball running on the ground at all, Jeremy. And Frank Ragnow and Graham Glasgow, like these were not great games to write home about for them in either the pass blocking or particularly for Grant, a little bit better for the run blocking, but there wasn't really much running to be done after a certain point. Yeah. And the Bills knew that, and they came crashing. They came crashing up the middle. They came crashing off the edge. They seemed to control those edges very, very well in this game.
Yeah, I think maybe that was one of the bigger disappointments of the game, and I think the Lions knew if they couldn't get the run game going, this is exactly what was going to happen, right? They were going to have to win a shootout and play perfect football on offense, and they certainly didn't do that. They wanted to control the clock. They wanted to keep Josh Allen off the field, and the Bills led the league in stuffed rate, and I think we saw why in this game. The confounding part is that they were also giving up 4.7 a carry for the season because they were giving up so many explosives, and the Lions just weren't able to create any of those explosives before they had to abandon it in the second half. And you're right, like the interior of that offensive line had an all-time terrible game. It's very uncharacteristic of them. I think, Ed Oliver, for whatever reason, just had Frank Ragnow's number on that day, which it's kind of shocking to see. We don't see it very often. Glasgow has kind of continued to have a downward trend this season. And I think there's at least a legitimate reason for concern right now with the running game. It hasn't been good for a couple weeks now. Really for a month, it hasn't been up to its own standard. And it's something the coaches brought up last week. They were well aware of it going into this week, and it seemed to be a focus. And it didn't materialize in any sort of good way this week. And now you take David Montgomery out of the equation, and it's like, okay, well, now it's all on Jahmyr Gibbs. How do you, when the blocking isn't perfect, how are you going to battle out those extra 2, 3, 4 yards that David Montgomery was able to do so well? Are they going to give it to Jahmyr Gibbs 75, 80% of the time, or do you give it to Craig Reynolds, or do you let Jamar Jefferson get an opportunity, or is Sione Vaki going to be part of that equation? We don't really know at this point, but it's not going to get any easier with the run game going forward. And you just hope this was one of those throwaway anomaly games from the offensive line, which we've seen over the past couple of years. It happens. They aren't going to be perfect every single game, but to me, there's a little bit of a concerning trend there that with the offensive line to a point where I'm not so sure that they're the best offensive line in football anymore.
Yeah, this game highlights the Texans game for me and why it kind of comes back to the defense. Jared Goff cannot afford to turn the ball over anymore. The Lions can't afford Amon-Ra St. Brown to fumble the football and give the Bills another short field and an opportunity to turn into points, because teams are going to do that. But you rewind back to the Texans game, and the Lions could withstand that because their defense showed up. Their defense showed up in a way that supported their offense, and Dan Campbell talked about it in his press conference when he said the Lions just didn't play complementary football yesterday. from the jump, right? Bills win the toss, they defer, Lions go 3 and out.
Yeah.
Not just 3 and out, but 3 and no yards and out, right? In a almost concerning way, but then it's easy, easy pickings for the Bills to come back, score a touchdown, and then what do the Lions do? 5 and out. It that can't happen. Like going forward, and that's what the defense. You're right, Jeremy. Like it's not the defense is just going to be terrible. They're going to be the 32nd ranked defense going forward, but I just don't have as much faith in this team as I did, knowing that the offense is now working with such a narrow margin for error.
Right. They've been winning games in all sorts of ways this season, right? They won with special teams, they won with defense, they won with offense. Now it feels like they don't have as many, guns in the arsenal, right?
The offense has to be perfect.
Yeah.
Or close to perfect. I mean, no such thing as a perfect offensive performance, but they certainly can't turn the ball over anymore.
That's Seattle game erasure right there. 18 for 18. What's going on, buddy? That's about as perfect as it gets.
Fair.
But no, I think it's again, like, and I mean, they have other ways to getting that ball out and, attacking for it. Like Jahmyr Gibbs had 83 receiving yards in this game. And so but those are still, it's Jahmyr Gibbs at the end of the day. So those, he still has himself another 100-yard scrimmage day. It's at that line of attack is what you're talking about. It's just part of this identity of the team. And look, I think for most of the receivers, this is, you don't need to worry about them for right now. Amon-Ra St. Brown had almost 200 yards in this game. It's just that it's not the identity of Lions football that we're used to them playing. And it's certainly not, with some of the grades out on some of the pass blocking right now, not what we're used to from this O-line.
It's interesting because obviously, I mean, it's no coincidence that the 2 times Jared Goff has thrown 50 passes the Lions have lost, right? That's not how they want to win games. The question is whether they can win games like that. And I don't know that, I'm not certain that the answer is no. I mean, Jared Goff was, I thought, fantastic for almost the entirety of this game and went toe-to-toe with Josh Allen, really, for most of it. I don't know that they're going to have to. I do think the run game will have an opportunity to turn things around and hopefully be better. But they might have to, right? They might have to get into these boat races and might have to have Jared Goff stand on his head. And I think if he can play like he did on Sunday, they're still going to win plenty of games. I mean, there's not that many games left, but they're going to win games if Jared Goff plays like he does, because the defense isn't going to be that bad every week. The question is whether Jared Goff can continue to play like that every single week, because he doesn't throw the ball 50 times very often. Can he be the guy that really, not that he hasn't been playing in an outstanding level, but he really hasn't had to put the entire team on his back very often. I think the last time he had to really do that was either in the playoffs against Tampa, both times, in the playoffs and outside of the playoffs, a little bit in the Rams game in the playoffs, but in general, that's just not his MO. That's not the MO of the team, but it very much might be the case where he has to go out there and really be the MVP of the league down the stretch. And listen, if Sunday's any indication, he's up for the challenge at least.
Yeah. You know what our MO is? Doing these righteous felon craft jerky and meat stick reads.
Meat operandi.
Meatus operandus. I don't even know. That's not proper Latin. Father, don't come after me. I'm sorry. I don't even remember my father, the priest's name from my high school. Righteous Felon brings you the Pride of Detroit POD cast. It's the jerky that fuels the POD cast. 16 to 20 grams of protein in every bag. Each stick has 8 grams. If it's good enough for us, it's going to be good enough for you too. We stand by this stuff. Righteous Felon is based in Westchester, Pennsylvania. They use locally sourced, all-natural black Angus beef, prize themselves on superior quality, revolutionary branding, and unique flavors that go beyond the stereotypical jerky offering. POD 15 at checkout will get you 15% off your order. The gift of meat is real this holiday season, so be sure to go to righteousfelon.com and use promo code POD15 at checkout. We come back on the Pride Detroit POD cast. We're not done with this game. We are going to start looking to the future. But first, before that, we do have to talk about 2 coaching decisions down the stretch we weren't able to hit on in the first segment because they are they're interesting. They've caused a lot of discussion. We have our own take on that, and yes, it is looking down the future. 3 games, and that seems to be the focus of the Lions right now. We'll be right back on the POD Cast. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. I need to take a phone call real quick. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. I will go through alerts, say hi to the people, answer some questions, all sorts of fun things like that. Oop, let me readjust everybody. Let me scroll. Okay. Rimshot Cowboy, thank you for the sub, the first time sub and the follow. No decaf, thank you for the 32-person raid. It would have been bigger. Actually, a 32, then a 22-person raid, but we were going through some technical difficulties. Shout out to the people who told me to change my stream output. You screwed it up. It's your fault.
Blaming the personnel. Unbelievable. Dan Campbell would never.
Dan Campbell would never. Is that true, Beamer? Wouldn't surprise me at all if that's true. But I don't want to say it out loud unless it's actually true. Now multiple people are saying it. Oh, yeah, there it is. Aaron Wilson saying the Lions are signing Anthony Pittman off the Jaguars practice squad.
Heard it here first.
There you go.
Way back when the Lions played Jacksonville.
Okay, sure. Why not? We just got done talking about how terrible the linebackers were, so can't hurt.
Greatest hits.
I wonder who they're going to release, but then I'm like, oh wait, no, they're just going to put 3 guys on IR. 4 guys. 4. Jesus, they're going to put 4 guys on IR. That's something. All right,
yeah.
Let me distract myself with alerts.
I was gonna say I haven't liked any of the adjectives used to describe the Lions injury situation because it doesn't feel like any of them fit. None of it works.
And listen, like, I don't want to act like I'm trying to be like super optimistic guy. Today sucked, right? Like I came into the day, I was trying to think of optimistic things to talk about and be a little bit more level-headed and try not to ride the wave of emotions. But then it was just gut punch after gut punch after gut punch today, and it's just like you can't help but have that feeling of like you don't want to be woe is me guy or the Lions are cursed or like any of that. But I said on Twitter, like I don't know if there's ever been such bad vibes for a 12-2 team. I don't know. I mean, you're seeing the national audience even being like, I've never seen an injury list like this. My God.
Right.
And it's just
which is why, like, you do want to step back and say 12-2. The Lions are 12-2. Why are the vibes so bad? How can people be so down on this team? Look at where they are. Look at all they've done. And it's like, they kind of have a point that like the vibes aren't so great. The vibes are kind of bad.
Yeah. And it's just like it feels like, again, I don't want to fall into this trap because I'm sure, 1, it's not true. 2, I still want to celebrate the season on some degree, but it feels like holy Lions that a 12-2 season, you're going up against a division that has is the only division right now with 2 teams with 10 or plus wins. And guess what? They actually have 3. And then like everything falls apart at the end of the season with the injuries, and you're just like, we can't even enjoy a franchise record-breaking season. Like, we don't even get to enjoy that. We have that ripped from our hearts, and like, then you kind of like you settle down. You're like, all right, this is a little bit over dramatic. There was never any guarantee this team was going to win the Super Bowl, and there's no guarantee they won't now. It just, I mean, this is everything I love and hate about the football season, though, right? Like, it is an emotional windbag. Like, it is just a whirlwind of excitement and terror and grief and all that stuff. And honestly, that's what I love about the game, because there are very few things in life that make me ride that wave of emotions. But it would be nice to just go like, most of a season and be like, hey, this has been pretty freaking awesome. And you know what? The truth is the last 2 seasons have been that. For the most part, they have been that, right? The 2022 season couldn't have ended. I mean, it could have ended better if they'd made the playoffs, but
I mean, it was almost 3 months of like incredible high stakes football.
Right. And it ended with great vibes, right? They didn't get to
the highest vibes,
to, but like, yeah.
That I can remember in a decade?
Right. And then last year was mostly really good stuff all season. You know, there was a dip in the middle of the season. Actually, there was a dip in the season like right about now.
Dip towards the end, yeah.
Right. But then you come back, you make an incredible run in the playoffs, and yes, the way it ended is heartbreaking and gut-wrenching, and I think people are already starting to look back on that and say, oh, was that our best shot? And again, over-dramatic in the moment, whatever, but...
Yeah. Sorry, are we talking about 2022?
We're talking about everything. We're talking about how the vibes are incredibly low for a 12-2 team, but also we've kind of been spoiled for the last 2 years.
I hate to say it. I keep coming back to that word spoiled. And I know that can be rough on Lions fans, but like, I don't have anything else to really describe it on how people I've seen, how people have kind of like veered one way or another. Like, I hate to even bring it up, but like, I think someone told me someone was like trying to look for the strength and conditioning coach's address now too. Like,
oh, dear Lord. I mean,
like, what the fuck are we doing?
You know, can we nip that shit in the bud?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't
had
want to
people
swear
ask
too
about
much.
The training staff, yeah,
but the
like,
training staff, the strength and conditioning, like I
have
know
nothing to do with this.
you guys are desperate for an answer. You see this weird thing happening where only the defensive players are getting hurt, and it's a ton of injuries, and there must be a reason for it. I'm sorry, guys, there isn't. There's
none.
The reason is that football is physical. That's it. No amount of strength and conditioning is going to save your leg from breaking. No strength and conditioning.
Physical, and random.
Yes.
Aiden Hutchins' injury was random.
Yes.
Khalil Dorsey's injury was kind of the same thing.
Jaw. What does that have to do with the turf or how hard you're practicing? Nothing. I'm sorry. It just isn't. And I know we want to point at the strength and conditioning coach because this is unprecedented in a lot of ways, but man, you're trying to scapegoat.
You're trying to find reason. You're trying to find reason in a unreasonable reality. This is just, unfortunately, we talked about it all last year, how the Lions were fortunate with injuries, and I feel like not only have they reverted to the mean, now the pendulum swung completely the other way again.
Right.
That's how bad this is. Like, yeah.
I hate, like, listen, this is also like one of the most well-renowned they just hired this guy, right? Like, and I get like, oh, they hired him now, and now all the injuries have happened. It must be that. Like, well, no. And credit to Justin Rogers for these 2 points. Levi Onwuzurike is a miracle on the field right now.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is? Frank Ragnow hasn't been on the injury report for his foot in all year? Why do you think that is? After 2 years on that, they have rehabbed the crap out of those guys to a point where they have not been injured all season. Those guys. Levi. Yeah. Okay, Levi.
Like injury report injured.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just want to make that clear.
Like, coming onto these reports. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop trying to find meaning in randomness in the world.
This is football. Like, this shit hurts. And I know people, I think the problem is that, and I'm realizing this, there is kind of an inherent problem for fans of a single team. Even people on the top level, even if you watch all the NFL teams, I feel like unless you are locked in on that team, you don't see how many other injuries other teams deal with in each given year, right? Unless it is like a top noticeable name. So it feels unprecedented. And in a lot of ways, the amount of injuries are unprecedented, but I'm just saying other teams go through this in certain years. You just don't remember it every now and then. But that's because football is a dangerous sport that puts a lot of people hurt.
Yeah. Aaron Schatz is out there trying to like figure out, hey, can anybody give me a season where a team lost this many defenders and
this is
has
historic,
seen their defensive DVOA plummet like the Lions has plummeted? And it's like there's no modern day comparison to what the Lions have suffered on defense. And I think that's the thing that's maybe the most maddening about this is it feels like this season has been about injuries since Aiden's happened.
Yeah, it was perfectly fine right up, and then Aiden happens, and then suddenly it just seems each week there's a new injury, Ryan. There's something new to the pile after that point, after the Cowboys game.
I guess what? Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's just since then injuries have been a like big topic of discussion. Whether it's I don't really care about the win-loss record of this team because they're going to get into the playoffs, and as long as they're healthy, they'll be great. Or, Aiden Hutchinson could be back for the Super Bowl if the Lions make the Super Bowl, and I think it's just week after week after week, and I know you can't avoid injuries and you can't avoid talking about them, but it just seems like ever since then, even when the Lions were blowing out the Jags or blowing out the Titans, and it
Mhm.
was like reminders of like, well, Aiden Hutchins' injury in the Super Bowl, and it's like
When was
last night
Anzalone's again? It
it
was that the Titans game or the Jags game? I think
was
it
in
was
the
the
I think it was in the
Sorry,
Jags game.
I didn't mean to throw you off, but it was
No, it's
fine.
fine. It's the Jags game.
Yeah, okay.
Um, but I don't know. Like my expectations just shifted a bit after yesterday because there's just there's just only so much that you can replace in terms of that's another huge big bummer about yesterday. Oh, the two guys that the Lions signed to big contract extensions in season. Oh, both done for the season.
Yeah.
One of them tore
I
his ACL and the other one MCL. And came
I
back and played through it and was delivering the shoulder and boom on players. The toughest SOB in Detroit is David Montgomery.
Sorry.
Period. End of
that,
discussion.
that just reminded me we didn't talk about the Dan Skipper touchdown at all. I need to make a note about that.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
Um,
listen, the uber like negative outlook too is like, are those guys going to be 100% to start the season? Like,
But
they might be playing, but
hmm.
you always hear a lot of coaches say like that first year off an ACL or that first year off an MCL or that first year off of whatever. It's not always going to be exactly what you expect. And
dude,
how many guys are going to be in that boat coming off surgery?
I know.
mean,
As
I,
as
10
soon
of
as
them?
I saw the Aleem injury news, I was like, cool. We have to do the whole. He spent the off season rehabbing, not training. We have to do that bit. Like we have
With
to
a
keep that in
lot of
mind
guys.
with not just him,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
Like
3 guys are getting
everybody.
surgery from yesterday.
Yeah.
Maybe 4.
It's
I don't
just
know.
it's coming so late too. I think you just hope that between whatever you do in the draft and free agency and having someone who will not be spending his entire offseason rehabbing will be Aiden Hutchinson at least. And you just hope that's like but yeah, I guess to Ryan's point, like I was thinking about this because I just finally got a 4K player, and purchase I made was Lord of the Rings, and it does, and I'm just sitting there watching. Hear me on this. I'm sitting here watching Return to the King, like watching Two Towers and Return to the King, as like Frodo becomes like even more just banged up, decrepit, like beaten down from the journey, and just by the end he's like gaunt, pale eyes, stuttering, like mentally destroyed. And that kind of feels like how this Lions team is going as they get closer and closer to the playoffs.
Well, I mean, the one thing you can know for sure is that Dan Campbell's going to use this, right? Like he's
Oh yeah,
already like
absolutely.
rallying up the troops of like, listen, all right, now no one believes in us. Now we're going through this adversity, and the people on the internet are saying you guys are a bunch of scrubs on defensively. You're going to prove them right, or you're going to prove them wrong, and all that noise. And we'll see how much that can carry you, right? How much can motivation and speeches and clips of the Last of the Mohicans or whatever he showed a couple weeks ago. I think was that right? The Last of the Mohicans? I think it was, right?
It was at.
I didn't hear about
was
this.
that at some point this season?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I remember him using it.
Yeah. But listen, like again, like I almost pulled like the roster, their starting defensive roster in the playoffs, and I think at one point someone named Quinton Bohanna was starting at defensive tackle in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, but Aleem McNeil was next to him.
He was when DJ Reader's going to be next to whoever they tried out there now.
That Aleem's the one that just really hurts me. Like in the way that Anzalone's injury hurt me, because like this is a guy who like everything felt good for him this year. The contract extension, like he's we talk about what a joy he is, and like I know he had battled a couple things, but man, this is just, yeah.
It felt like that. I think that's the hardest part is like, it's the heart and soul of their team defensively and offensively. Like Carlton Davis, I don't want to understate how good of a player he is, but a lot of what he brought felt like a mentality, right? Like this is a guy who is not afraid to get his nose dirty in the run game. He's a physical player. He's a veteran in that room. He carries a lot of weight just by nature of who he is as a player rather than even just the production on the field. The same can be said of Aleem, and the same is certainly, if you listen to Dan Campbell talk about how much of a gut punch the David Montgomery injury was, like you could tell he was hurting from that one. And I think the interesting takeaway there is, and again, this is Dan Campbell doing what he does and motivating. He's like, we have to make sure all of the sweat, blood, everything that man has given this franchise this year, we need to make sure that doesn't go for vain. That doesn't go in vain.
We haven't even mentioned the Khalil Dorsey one, which saw the entire team out on the field for that.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'm not sure
on that field, right? That's happened this year now.
Yeah. I'm not sure why CBS played it again, whatever goes on in their heads, but
morons.
Yeah, absolutely morons. I don't know why they showed that again.
Nance
they're like, we're going to show you only this once.
Yeah, it's really bad, so we're just going to show you just this once. Okay, if it's really bad, then just don't show it at all. You idiots. You morons. Like, that broadcast was terrible last night.
Yeah.
Awful. That's the A crew for CBS. Nance and Romo. Okay. Like, Nance, I pray that April comes around, or are you done doing the Masters? Because, are you watching paint dry, or are you calling a football game? And then Romo is just all over the place and so scattered-brained, and it's like listening to a 6-year-old call a football game because he just has like way too many thoughts and he doesn't know how to channel them at all. It's bad. And it wasn't just like they were like anti-Detroit or anything. It was just, I don't know. Like, it was so bad. Like, the whole reason I have to be stuck on Twitter during the game, and this is part of like the whole game day experience, and then today, like, having really nowhere to go because everybody on social media is just going back and forth about like, ooh, like, can we cheer about like Lions injuries the way that Lions fans cheered about Vikings injuries from last year? So there was no place to go today in terms of social media because everybody was just talking about injuries and all their dumb takes about it, and fans being dumb fans and trying to say that like a certain contingent of trolls who partake in the internet, that they speak for an entire fan base. Right. So that's annoying. And then like annoying during the game that I have to be on Twitter because, CBS wants to cut away from the injury and I don't even know who the player is down that everybody is treating as if it's a serious injury. So I have to check into Twitter. And then they come back from that serious injury and Jim Nance goes, this injury is really bad. So we're only going to show you this one time so it can get clipped and put on the internet. Cool. Sweet. Thanks. Awesome. Great. A+ work.
I'll take your word for it and not watch the replay,
I know
the broadcast replay.
Yeah. I've hit my grandfather in baseball where I'm syncing up Dan Miller over the TV and just muting everything.
There you go.
It's the best thing, man. Do NFL Plus. I wish NFL Plus would integrate it so I don't have to do it manually, but we move.
Let me get through the rest of the alerts. I barely scratched the surface there. Rich Frank, thank you for the subscription on YouTube. Slyest Rye, thank you for the 35 months using that Prime sub, which
thank you, Bezos.
Thank you, Bezos, which is a good reminder that if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can go over to Twitch right now, create an account, or if you have an account, you can subscribe to our Pride of Detroit Twitch channel for free. It's a way to financially support us that doesn't cost you a dime. All you have to do is click that purple subscription button, find the use Twitch Prime sub, click it, sub for free. There you go.
Easy as that.
Easy as that. Rise the Beast, $2 on the super chat, says watching Crybaby Chris yell at Crybabies was funny. I don't know what that means, and I'm just going to move past it. Robo, thank you for the 37 months, says all this adversity gonna make winning the Super Bowl even sweeter.
I know what that one's about because again, on the like, look, I at several points I said like, look, I see what's coming in on YouTube, and like, I'm not going to engage with those people because like, what else am I supposed to do? I'm getting rated when I do those post games. I'm getting rated by other fans, and then I'm getting a bunch of fans who are screaming bloody murder and wanting like the strength and conditioning coach to fenestrate it. Like, you guys after a game have to work on your fucking manners. That's all. That's all.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, hey, man, like that's why I'm gonna keep going back to the spoiled line a lot because, like, yeah, like I'm sorry, I'm not honest, that.
If I was doing a post game show after a game like that, the comments would be turned off. I mean, not literally turned off, but I would not be looking in the
I shouldn't have even had them on the screen. But like, that's part of what I'm trying to do, I guess. I don't know. That's on me.
I mean, you see what goes on in the Discord or in the Pride of Detroit live chat or Reddit. Like, it's a mess. Twitter, it's a mess during the game.
Our comment section.
I have to run a Discord server during the game, and shit happens. Like,
yeah. But anyways, we don't need to shit on fans. There's no reason for it. We all know that we're all going through.
No, I am
going
to shit on fans. I feel like part of what we need to do as a society is stop being this fucking like angry and conceited at people sometimes. Like this, especially
as you're being angry and conceited.
No, but like I think I need to rail against the negativity of it. Like I should be allowed to be negative about the negativity.
You can be, but it's There's to what end?
I don't know, man. Like, clearly the other way's not working.
I was just gonna say it's like it's a difference between being a fan and like just having etiquette and manners and like respect for others and empathy. Like it's different, right? Like I don't think anybody needs to gatekeep how to be a fan, but like I can check you when you're not being a good human being.
Right. Because listen, like I said, like part of the fun, even though it doesn't feel like fun in the moment, is the wild mood swings, right? Like you're going to be pissed during a loss. And why is that? Because it matters to you. And it's cool to have something that matters to us like Lions football. So you're well within your right to be angry and pissed off and want to blame someone and all that sort of stuff. But lashing out at each other, using personal insults, any of that sort of stuff is not cool. We shouldn't tolerate it. And yeah, it'd be a much better world if people could rein that in. But at the same time, it's never going to happen.
Pulling up to Dan Campbell's house after the NFC Championship game, like all that weird behavior, calling in contractors after the Cowboys game, that kind of weird behavior.
That we can keep that behavior. Keep that.
That's
shit
what I mean.
That's
not being a fan.
That's what I'm trying to talk about. Like, that's not like. Again, this is a team that just rattled off 11 games in a row, and I've got people once again going back to the Fire and Glenn line.
But like,
that's all it
it's
takes.
Like I can't even take those people aren't serious. They're not real human beings. Like with those kinds of opinions.
But they are. They are real people behind a keyboard. Like, what am I like? What I feel like we just learned this lesson in November. We can say they're not real, but at the same time, like they're real. They're out there. Like,
but you're giving attention to the stupid vocal minority. That's like
I don't even think it's giving attention though.
If you're addressing them, it is. You're a megaphone for them.
I'm not being a megaphone for them. I don't know. I'm going to disagree on that because I feel like at some point you can't just like ignore the people screaming all this time without saying anything because then they're also just going to keep doing it over and over and over. I don't know.
Yeah,
like. It's not a solution. I don't think there's a single solution for it.
No.
I said one line about it. So,
I'm like I didn't even see it. I didn't watch it. I didn't listen to it. So I should have just skipped over the comment, to be quite honest, the donation. Appreciate the $2, but
no, fuck that.
All right.
$2. They won't give me shit at McDonald's.
All right. Let me get through the rest of these. State Nate, thank you for 48 months. 4 freaking years. Is my math? Yeah, my math is right there. Detroit, 64 months subscribed to the channel. Texas Wolverine, 31 months. Nixus, 6 months, says, oh, hey, look, Prime came up. Guess you guys can have it. Hey, thank you, Nixus. TRW, thank you for the follow on Twitch. Downgrade, thank you for the 7 months. Says we can still win out with no defense. Lions over everything. Infrangibles 20 months says, I'm concerned, but I believe they have what it takes to make it happen. Trying to make me fall for the sofa king. Lethal, thank you for the follow.
Please repeat after me.
Beamer, thank you for the 9-month subscribe to the channel.
Slowly.
Woodchuck Hunter 100-bit says, bottom line is the Lions have one of the best seasons of all time, derailed by injuries. They still have a puncher's chance with their offense, and when it's MCDC throwing the punches, I like their chances. RGA 16-bit says, hi group chat hug. Wait, hi guys, group chat hug. There we go. Hey,
This is the last thing I'll say. Like we just called out a bunch of people who aren't Lions fans, but like. Anyway.
Shredder's Rage, 17 months, real quick, just came in. Thank you, Shredder's Rage. And we are caught up.
Can I talk about at least one thing I was fascinated with from the NFL weekend outside the Lions game that I didn't get to see?
I don't think I watched a single other game this weekend because of but go ahead.
I'm not telling you to watch a single other game. I just want you to look at the box score at the end of Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and the Philadelphia Eagles ran a 21-play, 88-yard, 10.5-minute drive where they didn't score to end the game. I feel like that's Dan Campbell. Like Dan Campbell is so jealous of that.
I don't think I've ever heard of a drive that long.
That's pretty crazy.
It's
good for them.
Unbelievable.
Not good for them because screw them. 21.
I really thought Pittsburgh
99 yards?
88 yards.
Oh, it says 99, but that's only because they had negative 11 yards in penalties.
Yes. Yeah.
That's something. That is definitely a Dan Campbell drive.
Folks calling Mahomes' injury fake. I don't think that's fake.
I mean, I saw it happen live. He got bent up pretty good. So
Yeah.
I'm not playing into that garbage either.
Who hit him? I didn't see the injury where he got hurt.
He was like, someone was holding his legs and then he got hit high too, and it was bending his body in the other direction.
Ooh. Yeah, that's never good.
McVeigh Rob, hey, 25 months, subscribe to the channel, says I still believe in DC and this team of destiny. I mean, listen, if the Lions can make a deep playoff run and I think even make the Super Bowl with this roster, you better put up a Dan Campbell statue right next to Barry Sanders' outside of Ford Field.
Like by April.
By April. Absolutely. Him and his two little Yorkies standing out there right next to Barry Sanders. We'll Movember that next year to commission a statue.
I didn't know that I was missing out so much from not following Holly Campbell on Twitter, or following her on Instagram, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a recent convert too.
Her story today of the spilt coffee on their kitchen island with just the caption 12 and 2 was pretty perfect. And then her also accidentally responding to a story
picture,
the pool picture of Dan. Somebody needs to ask Dan about the pool picture.
Hold on. I'm not on Instagram every day, so now I have to pull this up.
I don't think that's going to be there anymore, but yeah, so she was I don't remember what the person was asking for. Do you remember what someone responded to one of her stories with a question, or
I think it was something about their dogs, because in the original picture one of their Yorkies is on Dan's back in the pool.
Right. Yeah, and she posted a response to it with a picture of Dan Campbell in the pool shirtless with one of the dogs. And everyone went out there to see there. And 2 hours later, she posts, well, that was a fun way to learn that my replies to someone get shown to everybody.
And the picture was a picture of a coffin.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
An actual real coffin with just a ton of skull emojis.
Right.
Learn something the hard way.
And the bottom was really loose so that you could fly right through the bottom of it.
It was made out of crap wood.
Hey,
blue butts hanging out.
I'm sorry. I like a lot of football stuff, so I apologize if this is kind of off the beaten path. You mentioned Barry Sanders earlier, and I just started thinking about the Heisman at all. I did not realize Genty was like that close to Barry Sanders' record, but I just
are there
that
I saw that there were strong feelings about the Heisman. I don't follow college football enough
I think it was
to care.
I think Travis Hunter's fine as a pick. I'm just happy it's not a quarterback. I was riding hard for Genty because he's Boise State. And I think if he had broken Barry Sanders' record by playing those second halves of Boise games, maybe. But I think the reaction is mostly more because of Deion Sanders and just being the loudmouth bastard he is.
Sure.
About Travis Hunter, but Ryan, like we're talking about a guy who plays both ways, who plays CB and wide receiver.
Like caught touchdown passes in the same game where he had interceptions.
Yes.
And like isn't just doing it for
It's
like here and there on some gadget plays where he's playing wide receiver. No, he's like playing wide receiver.
and it's 2024. It's not 1924.
Right.
Like
Yeah. And like I'm not throwing any shade by saying this, but like it's not like Charles Woodson kind of like snap. Yeah, I know. There we go.
yeah.
I was rooting for Genty too. Like I was big on Boise State like preseason and knew that he was going to be just such a fun player with the way that I read a draft, like an early 2025 draft thing like that Brugler put out, and he had Genty circled as like this guy could be like a first round pick and be like one of those high first round picks because he's one of those rare guys at running back, and the NFL seems to be cool with doing this now. And I am just praying that the Cowboys don't get a chance to take him.
Please don't. Anyone but them. I think that's the other
Like
thing.
they
that
just
was
don't
frustrating.
deserve him.
No, they don't. I think that's the other thing that was frustrating about the Genty thing, if I can, is like it's also that we finally have a truly phenomenal running back who again is the closest anyone's ever going to get to Barry Sanders' record, and it's coming off of years of people pounding the table of running backs don't matter. So suddenly, or like doing this whole most value means quarterback kind of shit. So like suddenly we've got we're kind of pre-programmed to devalue the running back when like Genty was, I believe, the nation's leader in like just scrimmage yards. Like he is the Boise offense.
Yeah. Well, Travis Hunter's acceptance speech just made me feel super old because he didn't know who Lil Wayne was.
I haven't heard it. I don't believe you.
Lil Wayne was in attendance, and Travis Hunter was basically like, I'm so glad that my girlfriend showed me who you were. Like, I had no idea who you were, Lil Wayne, but now I listen to your music before every game. And I'm
He's the
like,
prize of this draft, right? Like, he's the real prize of this draft. Everyone's going to talk about quarterbacks, but he's the real prize of this draft. And I think he's a better CB than he is a wide receiver.
That seems
you
to
guys
be
want
the
you guys want to do a
consensus,
2025 mock draft for the Lions?
No,
real quick?
no,
Is that
no,
what
hell
we're
no.
doing? Is that what we're
No.
doing?
Oh. Let me stop your
do
video.
you have-
Let me stop your video.
Oh, jeez. No, I've got a different topic. I swear.
Can I give you it back?
No, you
I was
have
gonna
to.
say-
You have
I
to
was
give it
gonna say,
back.
yeah.
You have
I
to
was
give
like-
it back.
I tried doing it myself and I couldn't do it.
Do either of you have thoughts about Bill Belichick going to UNC?
Is Matt Patricia going with him?
Yeah, he is.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yes. He's taking his entire cronies.
Dude, I thought it was all a stunt to try to get an NFL job.
I kind of
And then
did.
they made
His
that
buyout, right? You've seen his buyout. It's really low for that reason.
Yeah, but I think even from the start, I was like, Bill Belichick being interested in North Carolina is giving me big. See NFL teams, like there are teams that want me, and it's like an
He did
ACC.
contact the
Cool.
Jets. He did contact the Jets before taking the job.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jeremy. Go ahead.
I don't even remember if I had. My only interest is, I mean, obviously it's a completely different ball game. It's not just about X's and O's. It's about recruiting and all that sort of stuff. But like he's already, the impact of him just being there has increased the boosters
NIL,
input by like 10 times. So he's going to have a chance to succeed. But I guess the question is, what does success at North Carolina football look like? I don't think they're going to suddenly turn into national. They're not going to turn into national championship contenders. I don't think. I'd be very surprised if that's where things go. But I don't even know what ACC is. That where they are? The ACC still exists?
Like, it does, but also like I think that's what makes it fascinating because like Clemson's had up and down years now. Then they seem reticent to even engage in the NIL world because of Dabo Swinney. Miami hilariously fell out of the playoffs, and Mario Cristobal isn't fully their answer. SMU is SMU going to keep doing this every year? Like I think the field is open for UNC, and Florida State only won 2 games this year. I think the field is open for UNC to do something, and if nothing else, it's a step towards retirement. And I'm sure he'd love to go fishing on the Outer Banks.
It's better than going fishing on an airplane.
A drone, you mean?
I mean, I still can't get over the meme I saw. Like, if you think Bill Belichick is going to have trouble recruiting, and then it was him and his 22-year-old girlfriend.
But it's not a Lil Wayne situation. Kids still know who Bill Belichick is, and it's not like we're so close to the NFL, we're blaming Bill Belichick.
That's what I mean, though.
Yep. Like we're close enough to the NFL, we're going to blame Bill Belichick for the downfall because, like, oh, he wasn't a good GM on top of it. Kids are just going to see that he's got 8 rings and know him as the guy of the Patriots coach.
I don't know how much they care about that.
I think they care about the Patriots. There's still a lot of people who are there's a lot of young people who grew up becoming Patriots fans because of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady.
Yeah, like Aiden Hutchinson, who is out of college and a professional football player for however many years now.
It wasn't that long ago, though, man.
Lil Wayne's run, the Carter 3, was in 2009.
2009, but what was the last Super Bowl for them? Was 2019?
I don't know.
Wayne was still putting out music then. I'm just saying.
That's all the thoughts I have on Bill Belichick. I don't know.
I'm sorry. I've just had.
By the way, I jumped the gun. There doesn't appear to be any confirmed reports out there that Patricia is joining, but I think it is heavily implied that that's probably going to happen.
It would be very funny if he's the last one, if he's the only one left out. If they bring Bill O'Brien, Joe Judge, Steve Belichick, but not Matt.
I mean, he's brought Matt everywhere, like on this new little TV show, and
he's lost weight.
Good for him.
Ozempic is crazy.
It's a hell of a drug.
All right, let's get back in the show. What are we doing?
We're supposed to save. I think
we're supposed to save the Matt Patricia weight commentary to Nick the Greek, who isn't even here clearly. Otherwise, there'd be 15 bit donations.
15
right
bits.
Now.
Now that you've said something, it's going to happen. You know that, right?
Absolutely. Welcome, Maz. Are you not typically here for? Are you more of a podcast listener than a live show listener?
I wonder for people who just listen.
First time on the pre-show, so yeah.
I was gonna say, I wonder people who just listen to the podcast and then they're like, all right, you know what? Fine, I'm gonna check out this whole Twitch YouTube thing live, and then there's like, these guys are fools.
Yeah, what's the percentage of people that listen to the podcast that come over to hear and like what we do in between segments versus absolutely hate it?
And they're just just the podcast. Like
I'm gonna wager it's like 60-40.
In what direction?
60% like, 40% hate.
I have no idea.
I will say this: either stance is warranted.
Yeah, that's fair.
Max
the
friends,
break is the best part. Yeah,
guy, this is an unfair sample size. You guys are already here.
Yeah.
So of course you enjoy the garbage that we talk about here.
How flattered would Nick the Greek be right now to know that people are trying to cosplay as him in chat right now? I think Nick would be so flattered.
Probably. Real quick, Crossfire, thank you for the follow here on Twitch. And Flair, 48 months at tier 2. Subscribed to us on Twitch. Appreciate you, Flair.
Liam's a completionist.
Okay. We are an acquired taste, Karen.
I'm sorry if I grab it and go off in different directions. I just feel like I want to pick the brains of Ryan and Jeremy on stuff more than just Lions every now and then.
Yeah.
Well, also, like, do we really want to talk about the Lions game from yesterday?
Right.
That's the thing. We've had a couple of really bad years, especially in those Patricia years, where we spent a lot of times in these breaks talking about other things because we kind of got conditioned.
Yeah, I mean, if you scroll back,
talk about it.
If you scroll back to the 2015, 2016 reviews, there's a lot of complaints about how often we talked about wrestling.
Yeah, fair.
Well, the difference was we were doing that on a podcast, but even still, when we started taking those out of the podcast, we were still doing those on Twitch streams because there were still a lot of bad years there where we're like, hey, we've got a points redemption for a list cast for sandwiches.
It's like part of the meme with chat in terms of, oh, they're talking about fast food again. Oh, they're talking about breakfast fast food again.
It's a bingo card. I think.
I had a breakfast baconator today.
Oh, what do you think?
A breakfast baconator? You went to Wendy's for breakfast? You sick freak.
Now that Taco Bell has stopped breakfast in my area, I've been going to Wendy's for the breakfast burritos.
I occasionally get in moods where I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to do something terrible to my body. And this morning was that, and I found myself right across from a Wendy's because I was dropping Zazu off at daycare because he has to go to daycare so that I can board him for the holidays. And I'm just like, I could go home and I could make myself a breakfast. I literally just went grocery shopping, so I have everything I need to make a good breakfast. And I'm going to be out of town next week, so I should get rid of all the food that's in my fridge.
Yeah.
But nope, the Wendy's is right there, and I want a Baconator breakfast. And those potato wedges are legit.
Oh, I go for the oatmeal bar. Have you had one of those oatmeal bars? They're very good.
Had you, Jeremy, have watched the Lions win last night, do you think you would have made that same poor decision?
Absolutely not.
Right? I know.
No question.
That's why last night in Slack, after I was done editing articles, I was like, I'm going to the store to get ice cream because maybe that might make me feel better.
I mean, listen, if the injuries were still there, maybe. But if we're talking a Lions healthy win, no injuries, I'm having 3 over easy eggs and some Greek yogurt.
Speaking of which, I thought I was going to work tomorrow, so I took down some tuna from the fridge for a poke bowl, but I think I'm going to... I got moved off Tuesday, so I think I'm going to make that tonight.
The return of the Cali boy.
Yeah. Breakfast food never off the... I just love breakfast out. Like, I even have a Hamilton Beach, like, breakfast sandwich maker, and it's not the same versus what you can get at Wendy's or McDonald's.
The Uber Eats commercial about Texas Wolverine just referenced because football is here to sell you food.
Jerry's eating rice. I like that commercial. Gonna give him that one.
One pride. I was playing a game and heard Baconator. You had my undivided attention. Wait, so what? All right, wait. So the potato wedges were good, but like the Baconator.
It's a burger bun, and it's like what, egg, bacon, sausage, and like several layers of. It's 2 layers of bacon and some extra cheese.
They do it on a burger bun.
Yeah,
I think so. I don't even remember. Like
it's not a croissant.
That was not a meal that I was savoring. That was a meal that was just going down the gullet.
They have croissants, they have biscuits, but not on the breakfast baconator. The breakfast baconators is exactly what it sounds like.
My goal when I get fast food is to eat it all in the car ride home so that I don't have to look at it when I get home.
In as few breaths as possible.
I looked up the picture just to make sure I had the layers right. So it is a burger bun, and the top it's mayo, then bacon, then cheese, then an egg, then bacon, then cheese, sausage patty, bottom of the bun.
I did not need that read back to me.
Yeah, dude, wow.
That
How
was
does it
like
feel
that was
having
like
your food read back to you that you're so ashamed of?
You guys
that was
remember
like
the,
I'm getting put in the back behind of a squad car and you're listing off all of the things I've done
all the
illegally.
charges? Yeah. Which one was the worst count?
Right to choose quietly.
It felt like the mayo probably felt like one of the worst counts.
It did. It honestly did. I don't even remember it. That's the thing.
Or it's like a breakfast sauce, but that shit's clearly mayo.
Oh, God. Well,
Anyway, segment 2?
please. Take me out of this tailspin.
Why do people eat in the car rather than inside the restaurant? For shame.
Yeah.
For shame. Like I don't want to be seen eating inside.
People know this face now, all right? We've been on a live show.
Oh God. All right. Yeah, I'm ready to go.
I don't need to be like, "Oh, I just saw Jeremy Rice at Detroit Online housing a baconator by himself in a Wendy's."
I also think that's something like I remember going inside when I was a kid, but I don't think like, hey, listen, maybe if they had the super bar, if that was still a thing.
It's true. I do. I do know and kind of miss the Wendy's super bar.
Yeah. I mean, shit. I remember going to Pizza Hut when they had like the buffets.
Mm-hmm. I think they still do,
down
don't
there.
they?
No, they don't. No, it's all just
what? Pizza Hut doesn't have buffets anymore?
Literally, they are just tiny cubes with ovens and prep area in the back and a place where you come up and pick up your pizza. There's no cool Pizza Huts anymore. I'm sorry.
What does this country come to?
What happened to the game I love?
Where did Ryan go?
Where did Ryan go?
I feel like he nodded at someone and then got away and then left. Bring back the scraps. This is the scraps.
Man, I gotta work. So off season might be scrap heavy.
How much more in donations to change Jeremy's tattoo to eating him? No, you guys aren't. There's a reason why you guys were never in charge of picking the tattoo.
We still have a Pizza Hut down here in North Carolina. It still has a buffet and sitting area, Texas Wolverine. There's a cool one in San Antonio with a lunch buffet. I won't imagine it's franchisee based, but you tell me where those are because I want to make pilgrimages to the remaining Pizza Huts in this country that have lunch buffets. Because, man, those pan pizzas, when they came right out of the fucking oven, man, they were great. And you wouldn't taste anything after eating it because they would kill your mouth. Oh, no, COVID didn't kill the lunch buffet or the Wendy's Super Bar, to be clear.
But I bet it killed a lot. I mean, it killed a lot of in-person dining, period.
Oh, sure.
Like, how many people go inside fast food restaurants at all anymore?
Yeah.
And I think COVID had a big part of that.
Absolutely.
COVID and like apps, right? The fast food apps too.
I would say a lot of it is the apps more than anything. Like there's a great chicken salad, it's like, I forget what it's called, but it's like a great kind of like just chicken place. They make chicken sandwiches, chicken salads, chicken wraps. But like they have an inside area where you can sit down, but they are so heavy on Uber Eats and DoorDash drivers. We tried going there. They won't let us sit inside. We just have every order is to go.
Sorry, I'm just reading Lasermouth. Thanks, you monster. I'm making eggs at 7:30 p.m. now. You guys suck.
Hey, eggs are great.
What's wrong with that?
You want to talk about something COVID took from us? All day McDonald's breakfast.
I'm kind of glad they took that away from us.
Oh, fuck you.
That's
fuck you. I
getting
will
rid
come
of the
back to
temptation.
Detroit and fight you on that.
Yeah, I'd. You know how easy it would be to talk myself into a
$1.50 breakfast sandwich at any hour of the day.
A McMuffin at 9:30 p.m. Yeah, for
Two
sure.
for $6.
I'm filling up for gas, and across the street is a McDonald's, and I can get a breakfast sandwich right now. Yeah, I'll do that.
That's why they're the best things on the menu.
Yeah. Nope. Don't need that.
All right.
That's fair.
I'm manifesting the next segment by changing the scene to the segment scene.
Go, please do.
Done
I
and
need
done.
the help now too. I've got a problem myself.
Oh, I forgot. I have a radio spot at 8:30.
All right, well, let's.
We can get out
yeah.
before then, right? Okay.
We're gonna be
Yeah,
out at
we're
8.
only going to go like 25 minutes. We'll be out before. Because I think people want to watch the Bears game too.
That is
Which is
kind of what I
disgusting
wanna do.
words out of my mouth, I know. But
Anytime you're putting any hope into the Bears, we're in a dark spot.
Just say they want to watch the NFC North game.
Caleb Williams. Pride to Detroit PODcast. We have a couple notes remaining from this game to talk about. Number one, and this is before we get into some of the serious debates, I just want to make a note because as I was looking at my notes, I really have to apologize. I have to apologize to our audience, to a specific man, to maybe all the players in the Detroit Lions. We did not touch on Dan Skipper's touchdown. It finally happened. And I want to point out at least that nugget of joy in the midst of this sea of wallowing and misery and everything else. Multiple years, Ryan, the Detroit Lions have been trying to get Dan Skipper a touchdown, and it finally happened. And boy, it looked like he was running in slow motion for that end zone. I could hear Chariots of Fire playing.
Happy for Dan Skipper. Congratulations for also welcoming your new child into the world after you scored your touchdown. What a day for Dan Skipper.
Yeah, really.
Good job, Dan Skipper. Keep throwing up. Doing what you're doing, Skip.
Do whatever you're doing, Skip.
Please don't throw up on the kid.
And plus, that was the Lions. Was that the first or the second trick play of the game? I think it was the second already, right?
It was the second. There was that. What was that? Was it your favorite, a reverse flea flicker?
It was hardly a flea flicker, but I guess technically maybe a flea flicker. But
All right.
I was only celebrating because I called on first bite that the Lions were going to run at least 2 trick plays, and they technically ran 3 because they ran a hook and ladder late in the game too.
They did. If the onside kick could have been unannounced and a surprise one, I think that maybe they would have opted for that too, and that would have counted for 4. I know we'll talk about that later. Do we want to talk about that now?
Let's talk about it right now. I was about to lead right into that.
Okay, good, because I was
First
done
off-
talking about Dan Skipper.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to make a note on Dan Skipper. That's all.
Yeah, congratulations.
Now I want to note that I think I have now finally turned against the new kickoff rules because we can't have surprise onside kicks. But the main issue of the onside kick is the one everyone is talking about. There were 2 onside kicks in this game. The second one we will not touch on too much, except maybe if we want to highlight Jake Bates being brave and going right into that fire to the bottom of the pile, which is probably the worst place on earth in any sport. But it's that first onside kick. So I believe the Lions had just scored, and I believe it was making it a
38-28.
2-score, 38-28. So it was a 2-score game, 10-point game at that point. And the Lions line up and announce they're going to onside kick the ball. The result is very unfortunate for the Lions because a Bills player ends up not just snagging the ball, but then taking it down to about the 5-yard line. So within 9 seconds, a second touchdown has happened, and the Bills are back up by 17 points. But if we can put aside the result of it, because that's a hell of a play by Buffalo, and I think you have to give it to them. There's a lot of consternation about just the decision itself to onside kick that early into a game. And I've seen arguments both ways to it. I'm personally of the belief that I have no problem with it, mostly because, A, there was really no stopping the Bills' offense at that point, and B, exactly what we wanted to see was going to happen on the next drive where the Lions scored another touchdown. They send it all the way back on the kickoff, and then the Bills bleed a full 6 minutes from the clock on a 10-play, 47-yard drive that ends in a field goal.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a perfect.
Damned if you don't. Yeah.
Right there. That is the Kobayashi Maru. Look at me making sci-fi references. There is
Star Trek.
There is no right answer to this scenario. I didn't love it, to be quite honest. Like they weren't really in as desperate situation as maybe it felt like in that situation. It's a 10-point game. There's 12 minutes left. I I would have liked to see him kick it deep and just give their defense another shot. I'll be honest, I didn't have a lot of confidence that they'd make that stop, and for that reason, I don't have a hot take here. I'm not, I don't have my pitchforks and torches out for Dan Campbell. I understand why he did it, and I think some of the histrionics from national writers like, why would he do this? This doesn't make any sense. Like that. No, it made sense given what the situation was. I just don't happen to agree with it. And I think we can have place for that, where we don't have to say Dan Campbell's an idiot, Dan Campbell's an irresponsible gambler, and just be like, I probably wouldn't have done that, but I get why he did it. And that's where I'm at with that one. Because, like you said, like when you're making that decision to kick that, the worst case scenario that's going through your mind is you don't recover it. It's not, it gets returned to the 5-yard line, right? Yeah. That is not even something you're thinking about as a potential outcome, because as a lot of people have pointed out, with the new kickoff rules, them getting the ball on the 45-yard line is not significantly different from them getting it on the 30, right? It's what, at 25 yards because they're getting it on your 45. Like, the game isn't over if they recover that in a general sense. You can still potentially get a stop there. And even if they get a field goal, it is still just a 2-score game. So the worst possible outcome happened with that choice, and that made it look worse than it was.
Yeah, and that was where I was at with it too, because I didn't have any problem with it. Just like I didn't have any problem with Dan Campbell going for it on 4th down last week against the Packers to make sure that, Jordan Love, I completely blanked on his name because, man, do I just hate football right now. But you didn't want to give Jordan Love the ball, and you didn't want to give him an opportunity to go get the Packers in field goal range and tie the game up. Same thing here. It felt like desperate times called for desperate measures to me at that point, because I had seen enough of Josh Allen 10-yard run, Josh Allen 11-yard run. Even if they were, because I even thought the secondary didn't play a terrible game. It was just the fact that there was no push up front with the defensive front. There was almost no pass rush. So, like, Josh Allen had time to operate. Josh Allen had time to run over to the sideline, which is just like one of the most aggravating but incredible things I've ever seen a quarterback do, that I don't know if I've seen anybody do as well as him. Like, to have the amount of poise that he has to run, like, basically full speed to the sideline and, like, stop and throw a ball. Like, it's not always like jumping out. It's like, I'm running all the way over here to buy myself that much more time, and I'm going to throw a dot. Like, the most ill-advised throw that no quarterback coach would ever sign off on me making if I described what I was going to do on this play before it happens, and then do it. Every quarterback coach, Mark Brunell, would be like, absolutely not, Jared Goff. Like, that's not you. You can't do that. And then Jared Goff tried to do some of that stuff in this game.
And it worked once. His Tim Patrick touchdown was incredible.
Yeah, and he had his little scamper for first down that whatever. But I think that with the onside kick, I agree that the thing that sucked about it was that it was poor execution in getting Mac Hollins down when he caught the ball, which I thought it was a pretty good kick from Jake Bates. Like,
yeah, no question.
Mac Hollins
made a hell of a play.
Good thing that he was actually wearing cleats and not grounding like he typically is.
That's just a frustrating part. Kind of like we talked about this with injuries during the break. Sometimes there's nobody to blame on your side. They just made one hell of a play.
The other aspect of this that I think is at least worth discussing is he kicked it deep the next time. And
yes,
I'm not sure why, because I don't think the situation is any different in that case. Like, there's just there's 6 minutes left, and there's 8 minutes. There's 8 minutes left instead of 12.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm a little bit surprised. Like, was that a sense of regret from him? I mean, he mentioned in the post game where he regretted it after seeing the result, right? He said, if I had known they were going to return it to the 5, I wouldn't have done it. That to me isn't saying I made a mistake. That is, I didn't like the result that I got, which that's not how you can make decisions you shouldn't make decisions based on the results that you got. You should make the decisions based on what opportunity it gives you, So I was a little surprised that he went back on it. That's not really like Dan Campbell to, at least in the middle of a game, say, hey, I'm going to stick to the strategy. No, let's change it up this time. It didn't work.
I think it's just that he got burned too hard on there, and I think it's human at that point when you get burned as hard as you do to just not go back to the well. Maybe it just
there's this false narrative that, and I think it came from an earlier game. There is not a rule that you can only onside kick it twice.
Yeah,
that has been a narrative out there that I heard someone say, and I think it was a false premise that came out earlier in the week. If that was the case, then yeah, I would agree. Like, you don't want to burn your second onside kick in the middle of the fourth quarter. You want to save it for the potential end. But I don't believe that is an actual rule.
Right. No. Which would also make me think that the first onside kick was worse.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
you're burning it that early, yeah.
I was totally fine with him doing it, but if that was the case, I think the only rule that they showed on the screen, as far as like the new kickoff rules go, is that the team must be trailing. Like, you have to be down, which they met all the criteria for that.
It has to be in the fourth quarter too, I think. Is that?
I believe that's true. Quarter, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But also, we can do away with the onside kick and just go to a 4th and 7 or something, right?
I think that's fair. Is like, I guess the problem is that I think there's this belief that Dan Campbell cares about the analytics. It definitely informs some of the decision, but I mean, onside kick is an extremely low percentage, and I do feel like now that you have to announce it, it's definitely a lot lower percentage. I'm curious what happens when we get a full year of numbers out of this. But it's got to be even lower than like what it traditionally is, like what, 3% or whatever.
No, it's like 8 or 9 before this year, and I think it's right now between 6 and 7. So it is down.
It is down.
Jeremy, did you see any numbers about, instead of onside kicking versus like just going the traditional route and kicking it off and letting them start at the 30, as far as like percentage wise of, success or stopping or whatever? I mean, it's so
in terms of like expected points and things like, right? Yeah. Right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting that they mentioned a week or two ago that they are considering a fourth down-ish type of play instead of the onside kick. And in theory, I like that. I've kind of liked it for a long time, but as soon as you think it out a little bit and you're like, oh God, there are going to be so many bombs thrown on a 4th and 17 play or whatever they're going to make it, that are converted through a pass interference, that it's going to drive me insane.
Oh, be honest. Be honest.
But also, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, be honest. It's because you love Dave Phipp.
Sorry.
But also, I don't want to give more advantage. Like, I don't want this to become like, oh, hey, do we have a quarterback who can convert that long of a pass or not? Versus the onside kick always felt like such a weird thing that it just like, okay, this is an advantage even if you to try to struggle back in when you're clearly down and a worse-ish team or whatever. The other decision, and I think it's a little bit of a less one, but I think it's one we all three have kind of talked about coming into the show, and it was kind of the time management at the end of this game, very uncharacteristic. I think we understand what Dan Campbell was going for. So setting this up after that field goal, 6 minutes have been burned off the clock. The Lions get the ball back just before the 2-minute warning. At this point, they have all 3 of their timeouts, and they've got to score at least they've got to score once and probably onside kick. And then no time. They use timeout number 1 at 25 seconds remaining on first and goal on the Buffalo 3-yard line.
Yeah. It actually goes a little bit back even further when the Bills ran a play. Their last play before the extra point was ran with about 2 minutes and 45 seconds left. They ran that all the way down to 2 minutes and 5 seconds left. The Lions could have called a timeout there to save 40 seconds there, and they opted not to.
Yeah. Either way, even if the Lions had recovered the onside kick, they would have had only 12 seconds remaining to try to make something of it. And I'm sorry, I don't really trust a Hail Mary situation there. I think there's an argument that if there had been better usage of the timeouts, you probably come into that, assuming, again, this is all academic because they didn't recover the onside kick. But, Ryan, there's probably a situation where they could have had a lot more time to put together a game-winning drive. And it's not happening because I guess the thought was we're going to try to save the timeouts for that potential drive, but they took way too much time Like Buffalo was not giving them anything, and they took way too much time scoring to make it 48-42.
Yeah, I thought for the most part, like Buffalo did a pretty good job of limiting Detroit to making plays to the outside, like I imagine they wanted to do. I'm sure that they didn't want to take a minute 51 to score when there was 2 minutes and 3 seconds on the clock. And also Buffalo, I know you don't want to run the risk of timing up your kick with maybe the defensive players on the edge to get an advantage to maybe block that field goal that Bass was kicking. But I thought that was a little bit of coaching mismanagement with McDermott letting them kick that field goal before the ball could have been up and maybe through the uprights, and they could have ran through the 2 minute warning right there. So I thought the Bills made a little bit of a mistake there. I thought that Dan Campbell probably should have called the timeout after the third and goal play at after the like Jeremy mentioned, the 2:45, that you're going to get another timeout, right? You're going to get the artificial timeout of the 2 minute warning, and it just saves more seconds on the clock. And I think in that type of game situation where you're down by multiple scores, you want to try to conserve as many seconds as possible. So that's the only issue that I have with it.
I think there's two things here. One, Dan Campbell admitted today on Monday there was not enough urgency on that last drive. Two, I think he was trying to do a strategy that actually, ironically, Sean McDermott got killed for the week before, whereas they were in a desperate situation. They needed all three timeouts so that if the ball got put back in the Rams' hands, they could get a 3-and-out and get the ball back, but McDermott burned one of those timeouts on offense. And so that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to do a 2-minute drill without using any of their timeouts so that if they don't get the onside kick, they still have an opportunity to get the ball back. The problem was it took them far too long to get down there. All the spiking that they had to do, all the working over the middle of the field, suddenly they found themselves down in the red zone with 20 seconds left, and those timeouts mean nothing on defense. If the Bills get the ball back with 20 seconds left and you have all three timeouts, doesn't matter. Those three plays are going to burn up 12, 14 of those, and now you saved your timeouts for 6 seconds. And so I think he just picked the wrong strategy in the moment where he should have probably just said, listen, we're probably not going to get a stop defensively anyways. Let's just try to save as much time as possible so that if we do get that onside kick, we're going to have a minute 30 rather than 20 seconds.
Yeah. And the last thing on that too is that, I mean, even if you're going to onside kick there and you're operating under the premise that like, all right, we're going to save these 3 timeouts to try to hopefully score a touchdown quick, I want you to kick it deep. I don't want you to kick an onside kick because you're pretty close to being in field goal range and the Lions are down 48-42. A field goal puts you out of the game.
Yeah. I mean, that may have been the strategy if they were able to score in 30 seconds instead of, a minute and 30.
And I think that it's just, again, such a razor thin margin that like you just want to keep as many seconds on the clock as possible. And you play it from there because you're down by multiple scores. So,
yeah, it's tough. As Jeremy said, it just sounds like they deployed the wrong strategy in the wrong spot. Just add up another woe to this game. Looking forward, in spite of all that we've done here, the Lions still have the 1 seed. The problem is the margin for error has completely vanished. 3 games remaining, and depending on what happens here, we're recording this right before Monday Night Football. Either way, the Minnesota game at the end of the year matters a hell of a lot. And so does, but I believe the Lions still hold a tiebreaker over the Philadelphia Eagles. And as far as right now, I believe they still hold a tiebreaker over the Minnesota Vikings.
Yep.
And ultimately, that game at the end of the year would put, if you win that game, assuming if you win that game, it stopped being much of an issue either way. So that's still where the Lions are at, no matter what.
Yeah.
What remains on the schedule: Bears, 49ers, 2 road games, Jeremy. But I mean, we'll have to see what the Bears are here. That was not a good showing against the 49ers, and I think the 49ers are a team that's just really not going to have much answers without Christian McCaffrey the rest of this way.
Yeah, I mean, listen, everything's still in front of them, right? They win all 3 games. They got the 1 seed. They got the division. You got your bye week. You're able to spend another week trying to get healthy. The good news is if you win 2 of those games and one of them is the Vikings game, you still win the division. That's great. The bad news is that the Eagles, all their remaining games are against the NFC East. Maybe they lose against Washington next week, but Washington hasn't looked particularly impressive. I don't think there's any shot the Eagles drop a game to the Cowboys or the Giants, even with, division messiness that sometimes results in upsets. But I think here's where my goal is right now, because the Lions are in such a tough spot with injuries and all that sort of stuff. I'm hoping they just win the division. Like, if they win the 1 seed, that is a cherry on the top at this point. And I think they have a really, really good chance to win the division. And I think they could have it wrapped up before week 18. Because here's the thing. The Vikings have the Bears tonight, which who knows how that one goes. They have, is it Seattle next week?
At Seattle, yeah. And
which is never an easy place to win. Unfortunately,
kinda,
the Geno Smith injury looms large. As of right now, we don't know if he's going to play. They're not ruling him out yet, but
I know
I'd be a little bit surprised.
I know what you're heading towards.
But week 17, the Packers. I think the Packers are right now playing better than the Vikings. And if they lose that game, if the Packers beat the Vikings and the Lions win their next 2 games, it is over. The Lions have clinched the division, because at that point, their division record will be worse than the Lions. And as long as they finish with the same record and the Lions have a better division record, which they will if they win the next 2 games, they'll be 5-0 in the division, whereas the Vikings will be 3-2 going into that game. The division is theirs. So like, that is kind of the realistic scenario in which I think that could very well play out in the Lions' favor. They have it wrapped up going into week 18. That game doesn't get flexed to Sunday Night Football. Please, no. And then you beat the Vikings and you win the 1 seed too. Like that still might get flexed because the 1 seed will still be on the line in that scenario. But that to me is a very realistic. I think the Lions they're touchdown favorites against the Bears already. I think they should beat a 49ers team that will probably be out of the playoff picture. By that point, they're just playing for pride. And at that point, maybe they rest some of their starters that are dealing with injuries. And then you go into the Vikings playing for a 1 versus 2 seed. And that is just about as ideal of a scenario given where everything is at right now. I'll take that 10 times out of 10.
I think, Ryan, I think some fans might hear that and say, yeah, but like, what's it really going to matter when you're looking at this playoff field? That's hard for me, but honestly, I still think the playoffs are just a different beast. And your just hope is that, to what Jeremy's talking about, you get some reinforcements. It won't be many. They might honestly run out of IR slots depending on who they can bring back. But you just have to kind of hope it's a different beast. You'll play it, that you can possibly have the chance to play at home if you get even division or 1 seed. And if nothing else, salvage some pride and just see what happens. Who knows? We've seen weirder before, but I think that's ultimately, like, I feel like you still, regardless of how this team has looked down the stretch, you still have to put the playoffs in its own category and say, look, yeah, it's the NFL. Anything can happen once you get in there.
I think it's even more important that the Lions get the 1 seed now, because that's 1 less game you have to win. That's 1 extra week you get to rest, get guys on board, on ready, to do what they need to do when it comes to their roles and their assignments. But it's even more important than it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago or whatever. I'm hoping that the Eagles lose a game, because that's really the only thing that's not in the Lions' control. Like, I get it. Like, you can win out. Like, yes, technically the 1 seed is still within your control, but it's just, you can't stop the Eagles and what they're doing. And if they lose a game, right, it just provides that little bit of breathing room for Detroit. And they just haven't had that breathing room all year long. It's going down to week 18. The NFL season is not forgiving enough to players. And I don't want to end on the injury note, but like, there just needs to be a second bye week. And that's why I think getting the 1 seed is so important for the Detroit Lions, to just have another week, to not have to play another playoff game. Because right now it truly is, it feels like a roll of the dice. Like, is the offense going to carry you the entire game? Great. I like their chances. Are they going to make a couple of mistakes like they did against Buffalo? That's when it gets dicey. That's when it gets murky. And I don't know. Get the 1 seed.
Yeah.
Win the division. Do all the good stuff. Finish the season on a high note.
I think I brought this up to Ryan on our last podcast after the Packers game, Jeremy. Do you know that the 1 seed last year in the NFC, what the record was?
No, the 49ers, what was their record?
It was 12-5. Well, technically there were 3 teams 12-5, the Lions, the 49ers, and the Cowboys, and I think the Niners had the tiebreakers. Either way, we're talking about that was what the division, that was your 1 seed last year. And now we're talking about the 1 seed is probably going to be 15-2.
Yeah.
12 wins will not win you the division this year.
12 wins won't win you the division.
Let alone the conference.
Yeah. And that's why, like, I mentioned this during the break, like, it just feels so Lions unlucky that they're in the midst of a franchise record season. They're in the midst of they had just had the longest winning streak ever. They're in the best start ever in their career, and they could they could finish as the 5 seed. They could finish maybe even as the 6 seed. I don't know. It's just crazy. It's a crazy amount of bad luck that have hit this team at the exact wrong time, and I understand why people are upset, but there's still 3 weeks.
But also, it's that word you use, luck. You can't control it.
Yeah.
You can't control what the Eagles do. You can't control injuries that are freaking happen on the football field that aren't the result of a training. It's not the result of anyone's fault that Lions players are getting hurt at this historic level. Like, it's not anyone's fault. It's the hand you get dealt, and it sucks. But, like, that's football, baby.
Yeah. And listen, despite all of the bad luck right now, as Ryan has said, like, everything is still in front of this team. They still hold all the cards when it comes to earning the 1 seed, and it's not going to be easy. But the next 2 games are against teams that aren't in the playoffs, and the other one is against a team that you kind of have their number right now.
Dude,
so let's see what happens.
And if people think Dan Campbell's been aggressive all year long, get ready.
His back's up against the wall, man. He's a Wolverine.
Dude, it's going to be everything in the kitchen sink. And I can't wait for somebody to clutch their pearls about it. But, like, the other thing I saw today, Chris, on social media quite a bit was Dan Campbell's post-game press conference from after the NFC Championship game last year. And it was just such a harrowing reminder that he was just speaking so much truth in that moment.
He knew.
This is not easy. And I really need to reinforce that to fans out there that, like, none of this is easy. I understand the Stars kind of went in a very odd way this year.
That's how it goes.
That's how it goes. And honestly, like, I don't think it's over. And I'm going to fight a little bit of those words because I feel like this organization is set up to try to at least give themselves chances each year, no matter what. Like, I'm not going to predict they're going to be back in the same spot next year because that's really hard to sustain 3 amazing top-level double-digit wins all those years. And depending what happens down the stretch, they might still once again be playing a first-place schedule next year. Although there's certain teams who I don't know. But it, like, yeah, I don't know. I thought this was all about, like, the Lions are at least going to be competitive and, something that's going to stick around for at least in the competition and at least that level to come for years and years. So this, again, all feels weird to be talking about when we're talking about a team that's 12-2 and hadn't lost in 3 months. And that's kind of where my psyche is breaking a little bit because, once again, I shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't have to do this on a team with these kind of things we're talking about. Losses happen in the NFL. It's not pre-playoff college, pre-12 team college football where it's like you make one mistake and it's over. And yet it just feels like a pressure cooker right now.
Well, because it's not the 2 losses that the Lions have in their win-loss column. It's the losses that they've had in terms of personnel along the way.
Yeah, it's not the double-digit wins. It's the double-digit injury reserve we're looking at here.
Lions haven't lost back-to-back games in a very long time. Dan Campbell thrives under being the underdog. And now the Lions are in both those situations right now.
It really has swung. The conversation has swung. All year has been the Lions, in spite of these injuries, I still have them as a Super Bowl favorite. Has been the mood from a lot of people. It feels like
they're still second in Vegas odds right now. Like let's tone down the rhetoric a little bit. Let's calm down and see what happens next week.
Well, last week Teddy Bruschi was like, "You can't play like you're the underdogs." Fast forward a week, the Lions.
The Lions are under the underdogs now.
But I don't want to play what the 49ers did last year, right? Where they're like, we're the underdogs, and they were literally favorites in all the games down the stretch, right? Like the Lions are 7-point favorites at Chicago.
And I think the other thing is that the Lions might be favorites down the stretch in every game. I mean, we'll see what happens by the Minnesota game if they're still favorites, but they're going to be favorites over the Bears and
they're touchdown.
Over
they're
the
literally a touchdown favorite, unless it's gone down since the Montgomery news, but.
Well, we'll see. I mean, by the time people hear it, they'll have the result from Monday Night Football as well.
True.
But I mean, they're
not going well so far. By the way, the Bears failed a 4th down conversion on their own side of the field. So,
all right, that sounds like it's time to get out.
Good job, Bears.
I was just trying to say that, like, I know it's a road, but they might be a road favorite against the 49ers. We'll see.
I mean, they're not a playoff team, and they shouldn't be underdogs in that game.
Yeah. All right, we should get out of here. Any other final notes?
Nope, we should get out of here.
Yep, Jeremy, glad to have you back and reiterating our points again. I'm going to keep thanking everyone for coming up to that live show. It feels like it was so long ago, Ryan, but it wasn't, and I still, it's been a hell of a year.
That feels months ago. I'm sorry. Feels very different.
Yeah. All right. For myself, I'm Chris Perfett, Ryan Matthews, Jeremy Reisman. This has been fantastic. We'll see you all next week, and we will see you Starside.
Recording stopped.
Perfect.
No worries, Mammoth. You gave me the opportunity to correct that because I heard it elsewhere. The whole you only have 2 onside kick things, and I remember that being like a point of contention. I think Peter Schrager was in the middle of it a month ago, and somehow he responded to me, so that's why it was fresh in my mind when I heard him like that. I'm pretty sure that's not true. So I don't know. You don't need to feel bad about it. You got fed bad information, and that happens when everyone has a check mark when they want to. Sorry, that was a weird tangent.
Not on Blue Sky.
Yeah. I mean, like, couldn't ever imagine anybody getting duped about Jared Goff's record in games where he has that many interceptions. Can't always take everything at face value, you know?
Anyways, 3-0 Vikings. They turned the turnover on downs into a 51-yard field goal.
Wait,
so
only into a field goal?
A 51-yarder too, so they didn't really move the ball at all.
Washed. Fraudulent.
We'll see. We'll see how that game goes. I'm not counting out a Bears win completely, but I am concerned about their ability to score in this game because I think Caleb Williams against Brian Flores is...
I'm sorry, Caleb Williams is the perfect passer rating right now.
Great. He also scrambled right up the middle on a 3rd and 2 and surprisingly didn't get it when he's faster than everyone else on defense and probably could have, run to the outside because you're a quarterback. Man. All right, Ted.
Is that true, Liam? Jared Goff has a better record in 5 interception games than 5 TD games this season. Is that true?
Yeah, 1-1. 1-0 versus 0-1. Yeah. Anyways.
Is anyone going to even turn on the alternate Monday Night Football game tonight?
What is the other game?
Falcons Raiders.
I don't think Falcons fans will.
Falcons fans.
Raiders fans are crazy. They'll probably still watch.
You want to talk about misery, man. I followed again Charles Forverts on Blue Sky, and I know this is Rich coming from a Lions fan, but I don't know how Falcons fans do this. I really don't.
Oh, yeah. Wow. What a narrative. Desmond Ridder, revenge game. Oh, boy.
Wait, that's right. Desmond Ridder is getting the start for the Raiders because Aiden O'Connell's out. Yeah.
Fun. Well,
we should get out of here.
Me say this again. Go Bears.
Oh God, no one clip that, please. Space. Oh, there's a couple alerts I should get to, and then we'll get out of here. Where was I? Exactly 9 months subscribe to the channel. So that's a fun question. What are y'all asking for Christmas? Thanks for everything, boys. Go loins. I don't have a big. I don't like getting stuff, so I'm the guy who never fills out their Amazon wish list. If there's one thing I want, it's maybe a tablet, because I think I want to start bringing a tablet to Lions games and have the Lions game there and like be able to kind of like futz around and watch replays and stuff. Because I've been doing it on my phone and I don't like that. And I'd also like to have chat on a tablet. It's just like a cheap tablet, like I don't know how much they run. $100, $100 tablet.
I'm tough for it because usually during the year, if I really need something, I just buy it anyway. So by the time I hit Christmas, it's like, what do you want? It's like, I'm not really wanting for anything right now. My mom did get me a 4K player because I finally decided I want to start buying physical mediums again because I got tired of figuring out what movies are on are or are not on Max or whatever other streaming service. She also gave me, I don't know if you can see this, there is a water fountain for Ruby now.
Nice.
Big giant water reservoir. I actually got to change out the water filter on it, but it's very nice. It's motion activated. He comes up to it, and like it'll give him fresh water that way, and that's actually really helped his intestinal problem. So those were the two things. And then besides that, I just got myself a couple gifts for myself, which was a new CPU and a copy of the Silmarillion. I mentioned Lord of the Rings earlier, and I am being a huge Tolkien dork. I think that's what I want. If I'm going to ask for anything else, like I want more books. I need to get back into reading. I think that's my not Christmas, but like that's my New Year's resolution is read a hell of a lot more than I've been reading. And actual books, actual physical like paper I can touch books.
I know this guy you can follow on Book Talk if you want.
Book Talk? Like TikTok Book Talk? Oh,
dude. Oh, man. That was like... It was just like part of the feed. Like, I was just doom scrolling, you know? And it's just like... We had a meeting with you. Multiple times. It was wild. Well, when you have kids, you don't get gifts anymore.
You give gifts.
Which is actually way better. There's like this large chunk where like Christmas is just dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you're either believing in Santa or
careful, we don't know who's watching.
You're gonna get the Krampus.
That's true. I don't want to be anybody's origin story. You either believe in Santa or you don't. You're wrong.
Beautiful.
I will probably be giving gifts. I've been actually angsting because my coworkers like to give a bunch of people gifts. Jonas as the last couple of years have given me like a Taste of Chicago box with some Lou Malnati's deep dish pizzas. I would love to get a lot of my coworkers something to drink for Christmas. I'm just trying to figure out like maybe some mulled wine or something. I don't know. I'm not good at gift giving.
I didn't realize that I could have. Yeah.
What, gotten your coworkers gifts?
No, he didn't want to ruin anyone's Christmas.
Where do babies come from? That's a Jeremy question.
How was Babby formed? Very carefully. No, Jeremy, very carefully.
Oh, wow. All right, cool.
All right, go watch Monday Night Football, you pervs. We'll see you for the midweek mailbag tomorrow night. We got a purview coming?
Let me see. I think Brandon is out of it. Actually, I do want to talk with you about something off stream, Jeremy.
Okay.
In regards to that, I did get an email about something I want to discuss. So we'll try to have a preview. Regardless.
It's not called the Perv View, Liam.
I know.
Oh, no.
That's even worse when someone thought I was naming it after myself.
All right, guys, we'll see you tomorrow night. I'm gonna stop the stream.
The Bears are driving.
They are. Oh, I forgot all the other. Let me read off the alerts real quick.
Yeah, no, you should, because there's a funny one in there.
Nicholas, thank you for the 10 months. So Goff needs another crazy 6-game stretch, and a very opportunistic defense is going to be what wins Detroit a Super Bowl. Let's go. I want to see Rakestraw at this point, when healthy, play outside. That is actually probably exactly what, like, they need to do exactly what they did towards the end of last year, which was they're going to cede a ton of yards on defense, but get a couple sacks, get an interception or two, and then just play stellar offense.
Oh man, can you imagine? Two starting rookie outside cornerbacks.
Oh boy. Oh boy. If you missed it, Dan Campbell said Rakestraw not ready to return this week, but getting close. So maybe next week.
He tweeted too.
Who did? Oh, Rakestraw tweeted.
Yeah,
Dan Campbell tweeted? What?
Dan Campbell through Holly Campbell's Instagram.
Constrictor 44 months subscribed. Ed O'Neill $5 super chat on YouTube says the only way the game doesn't matter for the division is if the Vikings lose one of the next 3 and the Lions win the next 2, if that makes sense. Yep, you and I were on the same page, and I saw that you said that in the YouTube chat as well. So, and then Space Kataz, our last alert here, 34 months, says, "Hey all, great podcast. Glad to user was injured while posting." Space Kataz to IR.
I think my favorite tweets I saw today was
oh my god.
What was it? Someone mentioning is like, 9 a.m. tomorrow. If you can play for the Lions, show up.
Well, the Bears are no longer driving.
What happened?
Caleb just got absolutely destroyed from his blind side and fumbled it. And it got returned all the way to the Bears' 40-yard line. So great. All right.